The walls of Jericho. It will not be only of interest, I hope, it will not only be of interest or benefit to those technically minded, like Brother Ralph, who is probably more technically minded than the rest of us. It should be of interest to all of us because I'm going to talk about the walls of Jericho in the symbology as used in the Bible. So hopefully it will be for all of us. As I say at the very beginning, it is chiefly meant for those of us who are tired and exhausted with life's trials and battles in the Christian walk. So I guess that's all of us. No matter how easy or how difficult it is, we all have to fight in our Christian walk. And the intent is to show that the battle that is going on in our lives is nothing else than mortifying our old Adam, which must go and which will go anyway. The old Adam of the people of this world will go anyway. They will not lose it. They will lose it. They will not keep it. And we will lose it. We will not keep it. But if we have to lose it, let's lose it in the way that will relieve something behind. Whereas the world will lose their old Adams anyway with nothing left for any future use. So it's about mortifying our old Adam and creating a new one. And of course, there is our Joshua, Jesus, to show us, to lead us how to do it. My hope as a result is that all of us will take more heart and will find more strength to press on in our daily lives to get to the finish line. And the finish line is a character fit for eternal life in the kingdom, which result with that character the world will not have when their old Adam will go down in death. So that's our advantage, and I would like all of us to have that advantage when the time comes. Let's have a look at ancient Jericho and how extremely well fortified it was. As you can see, everything started from a ditch. Probably it was possible to fill the ditch with water to make it into a moat, first wall of protection, then revetment wall, not even a wall proper, but a kind of reinforcement, preparation, foundation for the walls that are going to come up later. Then we've got a lower wall, a first line of defense after the first two, after the ditch and revetment wall. Then there was rampart, another kind of amplification, strengthening, and the upper wall. Extremely well fortified. And inside, of course, there were residents protected in this peculiar way from any intrusion, any invasion from without. So those residents of Jericho inside, they are all our natural desires, inclinations, preferences, priorities, ambitions, whatever we as humans hold dear, whether good or bad. They are inside that city. Israelites attacking the city is our new Adam, not the old one, our new Adam, our new mind, will, and heart, because that's our new Adam is. Our new Adam is, it starts in the mind, then it goes on to the will. But usually the passage of the new Adam from the new mind to the new will is very quick. As soon as the mind gets opened to the message of the Bible, to the message of salvation, it goes on to the will, because once people learn that they can live eternally, they want to live eternally. So the passage from here, from the mind to the will, is the road is very short, but taking the heart over is the problem, because it takes time for the new mind not only to invade the will and take it in control, but also to take the heart in control and change it accordingly so that it fits what is in the mind. And Jericho was the most important element, our fleshly human will, because that's what the wall stands for. That's what it represents. Our human will, protecting our natural desires, inclinations, preferences, priorities, ambitions, and whatnot. And this is probably the most important and the most problematic part. Our human will, that in declaration maybe is already down, but in fact, in practice, it's not down. Our human will tells the old Adam to keep strong. It doesn't want to give up, doesn't want to yield that easily. And that is the battle of our lifetime, to bring that wall down completely, so that our human will doesn't protect those inside, especially the bad elements. As we will see, inside there are also some good elements inside Jericho. And even though all of them were to be destroyed, as we learn, not all of them were destroyed. Not all that was inside Jericho was finally destroyed. We will see some elements that will survive. So that's the picture, that's the vantage point from which we will talk about what's going to happen later on. So as you can see, this time it is about our heart, not about our mind. Two prerequisites before the battle, necessary for each of us, just like they were necessary there in this symbol, in the type. Two prerequisites. In English, probably, as you see, this prerequisite. In Polish, we would have to use two different words to show, because it is not just a requisite or a condition, it's a prerequisite, a precondition. So something that must be prior to starting anything. Before you start fighting against Jericho, there are two things which you have to do even before you start. Even before you leave home for Jericho to do something about it, to destroy the walls, still at home you have to do two things. And the first one is circumcision. As we read in Joshua, before Israelites started to invade or attack Jericho, the Lord told them. At that time the Lord said unto Joshua, make thee sharp knives and circumcise again the children of Israel the second time. And Joshua made him sharp knives and circumcised the children of Israel at the hill of the foreskins. Why was it important for Joshua to circumcise them? What is meant is not, of course, literal circumcision, which was carried out in the type, because there in the type it was literal. But the important thing for us is this symbolic circumcision, that of the heart. And this symbolic circumcision is the putting away, the cutting of the love of sin, the love of self, and the love of the world from our hearts. We have to get rid of the love in those three directions as part of our circumcision. If we do not do it, there's nothing else you can do. Then in this case, don't even start anything, because you will fail. No success guaranteed. For, let's read it in the Bible. For he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision which is outward in the flesh. So we can see how Paul explains, makes it very clear, evident, that it's not this physical circumcision. But he is a Jew, or he's a consecrated person, which is one inwardly. And circumcision is all that of the heart, in the spirit, not in the letter, whose praise is not of men, but of God. And there are more details about this circumcision of the heart in another place where Paul, the same Paul, says, in whom also you are circumcised, but with the circumcision made without hands. And then he explains that circumcision made without hands in a similar way, in putting off the body of the sins of the flesh by the circumcision of Christ. So the circumcision that is meant, and the circumcision through which we have to go, is to put off the body of the sins of the flesh. So, in other words, to put away, cut off our love of sin, of self, and of the world from our hearts. That's the circumcision in question. I'm not going to show you any pictures of the real physical circumcision, because some of them might consider them obscene. But you know, yes, that's what circumcision is. But it is described here. It is the same. In physically, something was cut off, put off, and thrown away, rejected, never to be used again. And here it's the same. You have to put something off, throw it away. As far as the east or as far as the west, no matter which direction you choose, you have to throw it away, get rid of it. And that's why the symbol of circumcision is so powerful, because it shows what we have to do spiritually, symbolically, in our hearts. So the first question we should ask ourselves is, are our hearts really circumcised? Are we ready to start the battle? Because if the Jews hadn't circumcised, or if Joshua hadn't circumcised them, the Lord wouldn't have continued. Though he would have said to them, well, since you are not circumcised, since you don't want to circumcise, just walk away, or go ahead and you will die. Go ahead, you die, or just run for your life. As far away back to Canaan, to Egypt, wherever you want to, but don't stand here because you will die. Have we put away and cut off from our hearts the love of sin, the love of self, and the love of the world? If we have, we can move on. If we haven't, we should do it and hold off until we have done it. So that's the first prerequisite, a precondition, an initial condition before anything, before any battle can even start. God's method of breaking is, yes, I'm coming to the second prerequisite, because I said there were two. God's method of breaking the city walls was, as we know, by the Israelites marching around it for 7 days, and on the seventh day doing it even 7 times, which stands for completeness, blowing their trumpets in the process. Now, the question is, what did the Jews need to carry out this instruction? Did it make sense to them? Jericho, massive, huge, massive walls. How to break them down? Well, go around and play the trumpets. Most people would say absurd, nonsense, illogical. So what did they need to carry out an instruction which on the surface looked illogical? The second prerequisite, faith. Faith that such marching and such blowing made sense, even if on the surface it didn't. Because everyone must admit that on the surface it didn't make sense. But that's what God said. That's what God said we should do. If we want to break the walls down, that's what we should do. So should we do it? It doesn't make sense. Okay. So let's do it. And they did. 7 days marching, 6 days blowing the trumpet and watching around. On the 7th day, doing it 7 times. And down came the walls when they did it. By faith. And the Saint Paul in Hebrews confirms that's how the walls of Jericho went down. By faith, the walls of Jericho fell down. We will say, oh, no, not by faith, by the sound of the trumpet, because they blew their trumpets. Well, yes, that's right. But if they didn't believe it was to be effective, the sound of the trumpet wouldn't help. So it was by faith. By faith, the walls of Jericho fell down after they were compassed about 7 days. Without faith, it is impossible to please God. Not possible. Not until we have manifested full faith in God's ways of leading us to the kingdom can the wall of our human will go down, opening up the way for us to kill those inside, those residents of Jericho, those parts of our human nature which are not good enough to survive. There are some that are good enough to survive, remember, but yes, I will come to that anyway. Faith in God and his ways. Faith, even if impractical to the human mind, even when impractical to the human mind, and even if and even when painful to the human heart. Because sometimes God's ways are impractical, humanly speaking, and they are painful, humanly speaking. But was it painful for Jesus to die for us? And was it painful for God to be offended after creating us? As he creates his beings on the human plane, and they sin against him. They turn away from him. They say nasty things about him. Very painful to hear such things. If we can imagine someone telling bad, nasty things about us, how it hurts. So imagine God, who did much more than we can do for each other. So impractical to the human mind, painful to the human mind and heart For at times his ways might mean a tragic accident, for example. Why did God allow that tragic accident? I wasn't going on holiday. I was going to a class meeting or maybe to a gathering, and an accident happened. I didn't get to my destination, and now I have problems moving around, maybe walking. Or a serious disease that has limited my life in many, many ways. Just like Paul's poor eyesight. To the end of his life, he didn't see much. Probably in this dim light we are having at the moment, he wouldn't see you. You would be just little dots. And he would think, are they just dots in front of me? Am I speaking to people or to dots? If you moved a little, he would say, oh, probably there are people because those dots are moving. But he wouldn't recognize, as he didn't recognize the high priest when he answered him after being beaten on the face. Or another one, unemployment. Why does God allow unemployment into my life? I don't have a job and I need it. And God knows I need that job to survive. But I don't have it, or I don't have it for some time. Other people do, I don't. Family problems with different kinds of family problems, sometimes with children, with spouses, with all those different cousins that we have. Poverty, not enough money to survive, not enough money maybe to go to a gathering, not enough money to have what other people, what my neighbors have. Or death of our loved ones. It also comes, sometimes unexpectedly, takes them away, and they are no longer with us. And God allows all those things. So faith in God and his ways, even when impractical to the human mind, and even when painful to the human heart. Jesus' miracles were only to those who had sufficient faith. Others were always left out of the picture. Or you need sufficient faith to get anything from God or from Jesus. Let's listen to this account. And behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coast and cried unto him, saying, have mercy on me, O Lord, thou son of David. My daughter is grievously vexed with the devil. But he answered her not a word. And his disciples came and besought him, saying, send her away, for she crieth after us. But he answered and said, I'm not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Then came she and worshipped him, saying, Lord, help me. But he answered and said, it's not meet to take the children's bread and to cast it to dogs. And she said, truth, Lord, yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from their master's table. And now the most important part. Then Jesus answered and said unto her, O woman, great is thy faith. Be it unto thee even as thou wilt. And her daughter was made whole from that very hour. Because of her faith, a Canaanite woman, to whom Jesus was not sent at all at that time, he broke the rules. He went out of his way. Do you think God held him responsible later on? What did you do? You were to do good only to the Jews, at least until 36, the end of the last week of their favor. And now I can see a Canaanite woman getting benefit from you. You healed her daughter because of her faith. Exception, going out of the way, because faith is manifest. And they bring him another account, and they bring him one that was deaf and had an impediment in his speech. And they beseech him to put his hand upon him, and he took him aside from the multitude and put his fingers into his ears, and he spit and touched his tongue, and looking up to heaven, he sighed, and said unto him, Ephphatha, that is, be opened. And straightway his ears were opened, and the string of his tongue was loosed, and he spake plain. Because the man was a deaf mute, so he couldn't speak, he couldn't hear anything. Jesus first aroused his faith with 3 signs that the man could see. Fortunately, the man could see. So he showed him something to arouse, to give to incite his faith. Because without faith, that man wouldn't be able to receive the blessing. And Jesus knew that. That's why he behaved strangely. He would say, well, what a strange way. Couldn't he have done it in a different way? And now a gradual healing in stages, probably due to the man's initially insufficient faith. And he cometh to Bethsaida, and they bring a blind man unto him, and besought him to touch him. And he took the blind man by the hand, and led him out of the town. And when he had spit on his eyes, and put his hands upon him, similar procedure, he asked him if he saw anything. And he looked up and said, I see men as trees walking. More or less something like this. He hadn't seen anything. And after Jesus' first attempt, he saw something like that, men as trees walking. After that, he put his hands again upon his eyes and made him look up, and he was restored and saw every man clearly. Why this strange way of doing? Well, what can you say about the first time Jesus wanted to recover his sight? Jesus didn't know how to do it? Made a mistake? No, the man did not show enough faith. According to your faith, be it unto you. So he, from not seeing anything at all, as it was before, he saw men as trees without details, because that was his faith. His initial faith deserved only that much. And after from not seeing anything, he saw anything, something, people like trees, then he started to believe that after all, it's possible for me to see again. And probably in a matter of seconds, his faith increased from what it was to a level sufficiently big, high for Jesus to restore his sight completely. So if we have little faith, we get little blessings. Finally, the miracle from Matthew 7. And when Jesus departed thence, two blind men followed him, crying and saying, Thou, son of David, have mercy on us. And when he was come into the house, the blind men came to him, and Jesus said unto them, Believe you that I am able to do this? Mark this question. Believe you that I am able to do this? They said unto him, Yea, Lord. Then touched he their eyes, saying, According to your faith be it unto you. And their eyes were opened, and Jesus straightly charged them, saying, See that no man know it. Believe you that I am able to do this? Do you have enough faith to receive the blessing? Can I restore your sight because your faith is strong enough? Or will I try in vain? So it is faith that seems to be the only means through which God and Jesus bestow the spiritual blessings upon us. Faith. The only means through which we can get anything from God. That's why we can never allow ourselves to lose our faith or to even diminish our faith, no matter what happens, no matter what. Because if we do, we lose the only channel through which God's blessings can ever reach us. That's the only channel, at least now, for the time being, when we are still living in the age of faith. Once we lose it, I mean our faith, once we lose our faith, we won't be able to continue any fight against sin. And we will be easily and quickly overcome by the opposition coming from Satan, coming from the world, and coming from our own flesh, very quickly, in no time at all. Sadly, many or most of God's people are people of little faith, too little faith, like Peter trying to walk on the sea. At the beginning, he believed that it was possible for him to walk on the sea, so he walked for some time. But then when he saw crashing waves on the left and on the right, he started to doubt whether it was possible any longer, and he started to drown. Little faith means little blessings. So don't let anyone diminish or destroy our faith. This lack of faith on the part of the people across the board, and also across the board of the lost people, is a bit strange, I must say. Why? Because faith seems to be commonplace in the world. With everyone, even the worldly have faith, they believe. Because almost everyone believes in something or in somebody. Almost everyone, or maybe everyone. Here are a few examples. Isn't it faith? For example, farmers believe that grains sown in will bring them a good harvest when the time comes, usually a few months later. So they joyfully throw the grains into the soil, which to somebody not knowing that it works would just be wastefulness. What is this gentleman doing? Wasting the grains. He's throwing them away. Why not make bread out of it? Why throw it away? Because he believes, he knows, he believes that in a matter of months, he will have even more grains. And what about this? People believe that their money deposited in a bank will bring them a good profit. So they leave their money, their own money, there and walk away with nothing more than a piece of paper. Today, when we have applications, now we don't even probably get a piece of paper. We have an app in our phone. You say, okay, I can see something in my account. All the money I paid in is there. But it's just an app. You may have a look tomorrow and it would be zero. For some reason, no, people believe, no, the money will be there. I believe the banks are fine, strong. Oh, times are unstable, but people still believe it. And they keep their money for years in banks. And they invest more and more. And no, they have no problem with that. Isn't it faith? Or another example. Parents believe that their kid left in a kindergarten will return to them after a few hours. And their kid sent to a summer camp, for example, will return to them after a few weeks. And sometimes they send them even abroad, maybe from America or Canada to Poland, or from Poland to America or Canada, so far away. And they are not worried that they may never see their child again. They believe that child will return after a few hours, a few days, a few weeks, a few months. Why do we have and manifest faith in such earthly matters, but sometimes lack faith when it comes to what God does providentially in our lives? Why? Is it because we are in near daily touch with those earthly things and seeing that they work, we build up our trust? But God maybe is too distant from us, or maybe we are too distant from Him, perhaps. And because of this lack of closeness, we don't trust Him as much as the bank. If He is distant, let us remember He's only as far away from us as far we have walked away from Him. Never, never further away. If He is distant, if He's far away, He's always only that far away, as far away we have walked away from Him, or maybe even thrown Him away. Because some people walk away from God, they forget about Him, and slowly they drift apart. And sometimes they consciously throw Him away because there's a kind of rebellion, something happens in their life, and they say, that's it, enough is enough. I don't want to do anything more with such God. Maybe we read about Him in the Bible and in the truth literature. We hear about Him from various sources, but never or next to never have much to do with Him. Maybe He's almost non-existent in our lives. Maybe we do not trust Him with whatever we possess, be it money, children, houses, cars, jobs, health, life itself. But maybe we prefer to have things our way, which He's supposed to know. Don't we pray to Him? Don't we tell Him our ways? And He's omnipotent, all-powerful. Why doesn't He do what I ask Him to do? I ask nicely, kindly, every day, twice a day, 3 times a day, maybe all the time. Why doesn't He give me what I ask Him to give me? Why doesn't He want me to have my way? Why does He want to have His way in my life? So because, well, yes, He knows our way from our prayers, and He should bless, because bless He can and bless He could. Have we ever found Him to be at least as productive as the soil into which we throw our grains, as trustworthy as the bank where we leave our money, and as caring as caregivers with whom we send our children far away from home, believing, having faith, we will see them again? Briefly, do we live out the words of the apostle from this section, 2 Corinthians? For all things are for your sakes. The things in bold are to be remembered. The things in bold and underlined are to be remembered even better. For all things are for your sakes. All things are for your sakes, that the abundant grace might, through the thanksgiving of many, redound to the glory of God, for which cause we faint not. But though our outward man perish, yet the inward man is renewed day by day. Perish, active voice, it perishes on its own, but the inward man is renewed, passive voice. Probably you haven't been to school for quite a time, but passive, in the active voice, we are the agent, we are the performer, and with the passive voice, it's renewed by God. We don't know how to renew our inward man. That's why we should rely on the one who knows. Active, passive. For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, it is light, Paul says, and is but for a moment. Worketh for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. But there is a condition. It is light, this affliction, and it is but for a moment. Why? Maybe if would be better here. While if we look not at the things which are seen, but while we look at the things which are not seen. We have to fulfill this condition. We have to meet this condition. If we cannot look at the things that are not seen, if we can only look at the things which are seen, banks, yes, agriculture, traveling, planes, taking off and landing, everything working fine, then of course, our affliction when it comes will not be light, because we cannot see that this affliction is to bring something spiritual, eternal in the future. And it will not be for a moment. It will be very, very long. We would say, oh, for how many years it's been going on like this? Nothing changes for the better. So Paul gives these two conditions. Our affliction is light, and but for a moment, if we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. And then he just crowns what he says. For the things which are seen are temporal, here in this life, coming to an end with its human life. But the things which are not seen are eternal. Strange as it is, that is true. We don't see it, but it is eternal. We see something around us, this world, and all it has to offer. It's temporal. It will pass. It will go. It will disappear. It will not stay with us forever, or it will not stay with anyone forever. If we persist in using faith against all odds, against all and any odds, not just in fair weather, because it's easy to believe in fair weather. A fair weather friend. Yes, I am God's friend in fair weather. Yes, our faith gets increased in us, and along with it, increased are the blessings of character growth. That's how it works. Persist in using faith against all and any odds, against all accidents, diseases, poverty, unemployment, whatever comes into our life. Every time, a quote from President Truth. Every time we pass through a conflict and still retain not only the intellectual appreciation of the truth, I didn't put it in bold because that's not the most important thing. So we pass through a conflict in our life, disaster, affliction, suffering, and we still retain, and that is important, what we have to retain. This is also important, but not very important. The most important thing is not the intellectual appreciation of the truth. What counts, what matters is if we retain our confidence in God, our reliance on his promises, our integrity of heart and of purpose, and our zeal for righteousness. So you see, God allows afflictions, sufferings, disasters, problems, conflicts into our lives. And he says, whatever the conflict problem is, I want you to retain, keep up your confidence in me, your reliance on my promises, your integrity of heart and purpose, and your zeal for righteousness. And then the result is what? It is in red, in my quote. Our characters then grow stronger, more symmetrical, more Christ-like. And hence we are more pleasing to our King, who, and again, a very important part, who is subjecting us to discipline with this very end in mind. It's not affliction for the sake of affliction. And now I would like to look at you when you cry. I like looking at people when they cry, or when they suffer, or when they are dying in their beds. I like looking at them. So no, that's not the way God likes. He subjects us to discipline with this area and very end in mind, and there is no other way. There is no other way to develop characters but through going along a hard road. Only God didn't have to do it. But he's a creature we don't understand. He has always been like that. He didn't have to develop his character. He didn't need a hard road or a smooth road to be developed. He is what he is. But Jesus, a creature, had to go the same, a very hard road. If he hadn't gone that hard road, he wouldn't be where he is now. That's why Satan makes it a point to kill our faith. Yes, he makes it a point to kill our faith, which he does through error. The more error he puts into people's minds, the harder it is to arise genuine faith. And we can see that he's terribly successful with most Christians. Terribly successful. What a success. And number two, by trying to take away from our lives all the sweetness and pumping into our lives, as much of bitterness as possible, all the bitterness, in the hope of shaking our faith. He tries to take away all the sweetness and pump in all the bitterness. A short quote from another PT. The adversary does everything in his power to make our lives unpleasant and unhappy. Unpleasant and unhappy. By trying to take away all the sweetness. We must contend with fightings without and fightings within. It's not all peace without and all calmness within. If we let him do it, if we let Satan make our lives unpleasant and unhappy, it will make him, Satan, very happy. And the question, do we want to make Satan happy? I don't. Sometimes when I have a problem with a part of my old Adam, I say, I must destroy that part of my old Adam, because if I don't, Satan will be happy. I don't want to make him happy. Everything in Jericho was condemned or devoted. And so everything in and of our human nature is condemned or devoted, meaning that every active influence principle of the human nature must be destroyed or devoted. And here we are coming to an interesting part. Please have a look at two different translations. Well, King James, and the city shall be accursed or condemned, and all that are therein to the Lord. And this is New International Version. The city and all that is in it are to be devoted to the Lord. Is it the same to you as English speakers? If something is accursed to the Lord, or if something is devoted to the Lord, or is it different? Different. And it seems that this Hebrew word, cherem, can be translated both ways. And when we look at this picture, we can see that both ways are true. Both ways are true. Everything with that city shall be condemned or accursed. But if it is accursed to the Lord, it seems, well, maybe if we wanted to translate that in a better way, maybe we could say, and the city shall be accursed or condemned, and everything in the city because of the Lord. That would be better, yes, because the Lord wants it that way. He wants it to be accursed, condemned, and devoted to the Lord, given to him. Yes, when we devote something to God, we give it to him. When we accuse something, we cannot accuse something to the Lord. How can you accuse something to the Lord? What benefit will the Lord have if we accuse anything to him? Probably because of him, but it doesn't matter. The Hebrew word harem has both meanings, and both translations are correct. Everything depends on the translator. And I will show you that both of them work for us symbolically. That's why God probably used that word in this way. Colossians, mortify, that is, kill, therefore your members which are upon the earth, fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil desire, covetousness, which is idolatry. For which things' sake the wrath of God cometh on the children of disobedience, in the which you also walked sometime, when you lived in them. But now you also put off all these, anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy communication out of your mouth. Lie not one to another, seeing that you have put off the old man with his deeds, seeing that you have circumcised, put off. Or another one from Paul, that you put off concerning the former conduct the old man, which is corrupt, according to the deceitful lusts. But our human nature is not all corrupt, and there is still some good in it. So in Jericho, there are some things that do not deserve to be put down, put to death, or put away. That's why some things originally doomed to destruction were not to be destroyed after all. So God says, when you come to me, you have to be ready to get rid, to accuse, to throw away everything you as a human have, possessed, or are. When you do it, I will tell you that there are some things you can keep on because I can make a good use of them, or you can make a good use of them under my leadership. But to begin with, you must be ready to get rid of everything. Remember that young man who was very rich and Jesus told him to sell everything away and give it away to the poor? That's not what Jesus wanted him to do, but he wanted to see if the man was ready to give up everything. But all the silver and gold and vessels of brass and iron are consecrated unto the Lord. They shall come into the treasure of the Lord, and they burn the city with fire, and all that was therein, only the silver, the gold, the vessels of brass and iron, they put into the treasure of the house of the Lord. These are the things that were not destroyed. All the silver and gold, the vessels of brass and iron, are our earthly possessions of very great value or less great value. All of us have got something. Houses we live in, drives we drive in, computers we use. For example, there are two or three, even three working on the first desk. Or the thing I am holding in my hand, helping me to communicate with my presentation. So originally, all of them were to be accursed along with everything else in Jericho, accursed, but wisely not destroyed along with our carnal servants of sin, but devoted or consecrated to the Lord's service, put into the treasury of the Lord. From then on, not to be used selfishly as before, but in consultation with our new owner, God and Jesus. They are the owner, devoted to him. Ourselves being only their stewards, doing what they want us to do, not doing what we stewards want to do. Remember the ambiguity of the Hebrew harem? King James once again, and the city shall be accursed, and all that are therein to the Lord. Originally everything accursed, to be destroyed. Or another possibility of the same word in need, the city and all that is in it are to be devoted to the Lord. Both translations are fine, because some things in our Jericho are to be destroyed, accursed, as of no value, and some things originally meant for destruction with everything else can be used in a different way from now on, used in a different way because they do not deserve to be destroyed. The other Jericho thing, this time animate, because the first were inanimate, that was not to be destroyed was Rahab, the city's inhabitant, originally condemned with all the others. She was a resident of the city after all, but at the end of the day, saved with all her family members. Afterwards, she married into the tribe of Judah, as we know, a side note, and became one of the ancestors of our Lord Jesus. So Rahab, her son Boaz, his son Obed, his son Jesse, and his son David. So Rahab was King David's great-great-grandmother then. Some people say that that cannot be true. I'm not going to go into it, because the period of the judges was 450 years long. And we can see that there are only what? 4 generations. So David would be generation number 4. So that would mean that children probably should be born at about every 100 years, so as to get, but I'm not going to get into that. There is an explanation somewhere about it. For sure, she was one of the ancestors. Whether there were 3 generations in between, or maybe if there were 5, it doesn't matter, because this account may be shortened for some reason. But for sure, she was one of the ancestors. What do Rahab and her family symbolize in our humanity? Those elements of our old Adam, which, with the walls still standing up, were used to serve selfishness and sin. But now, with the walls down, after our consecration, after our circumcision, they are not to be destroyed, but turned into divine service, turned into a better use than before. Rahab, a longing desire, often subconscious, for fellowship with our Creator, even if one does not know much about him, like Abraham. He didn't know much about God. For some reason, he was the only one to feel that God was completely different. The God he believed in was completely different from the gods that his even family members believed and all his countrymen. That's why God told him, leave the place, I will take you somewhere else. A quote from Acts, that they should seek the Lord if haply they might feel after him and find him, though he be not far away, far from every one of us. God is not far from every one of his creatures, because he's our creator after all. Can a creator, a father, be far away from his family? Rahab's family members, various gifts, talents, skills we have as humans. For example, we can have a talent for speaking, no longer only to tell jokes. Now use your talent for speaking to tell the truth. Singing, no longer only in the bathroom, in the shower, not only, in the shower too, to practice, to exercise, so that your voice is even better. But not only that. Music, not only for pleasure, whether listening or performing. Occupational skills, no longer only to make a living. We can employ some of our professional skills, occupational skills, knowledge we get from our work in this work. For example, I've been a teacher all my life, a teacher of English. And now English seems to be a help for me to study the truth and to talk about it in English. Had I not become an English teacher, all this wouldn't be possible. Driving, no longer only to get to or from work or do the shopping, but also drive to places where there is spiritual upbuilding, or maybe even serve other brethren with your car, as one of the sisters, yes, has been doing here for a few days. Or foreign languages, no longer only to sightsee, to communicate easily when you go to another country. You can use your knowledge of foreign languages for a better. You don't have to destroy it. God says that it doesn't make sense to destroy it. What for? There will be no good if we destroy. And I guess you could put some other elements to the list. The list is not complete, of course. Symbolic silver and gold and vessels of brass and iron and Rahab, after first having been reckoned dead, afterwards should actively be used in God's service without being destroyed. We are ready to get rid of everything. We are ready to devote, to curse anything that God thinks suitable, proper, but all the good things that can be redeployed, so to say, or employed in a different way, they should be kept alive and used for different, better purposes. Unlike everything and everybody else in Jericho, the likes of all our fallen, selfish, evil, natural desires, inclinations, preferences, priorities, ambitions, vanities, whatever, which are to be destroyed with no mercy shown in the process. And we can see no mercy right here in this picture. Kill all those bad inclinations, parts of our nature. And this is possible only if we remain in consecration, close to Jesus' ransom, as Rahab did in Jericho, putting out a scarlet cord, and as Israelites did in Egypt, staying, as we know, in houses with blood on their doors. As without Jesus, we can do nothing. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me, you can do nothing. That's the truth. Another act of great faith in this picture is Rahab's putting out the scarlet cord in the hope that despite all the noise, all the confusion amid the hostilities, it would be discerned and would save her. And save her it did. But can you imagine how much faith she needed? War, hostilities around, a terrible noise, people dying, crying, shouting, yelling, whatever. And she, in all that, stands in the window with a scarlet cord. And a very nice picture of us when such situations come into our life. So such faith will help us to amid the noise, the trials, the confusion in our lives. As long as we put our cord out and as long as we keep it out and don't walk away from our standing before God. Don't walk away from that window from which you can see God, Jesus, and you can keep this cord out. Because if we walk away, where shall we go? What hope will we have? One last thing worth mentioning is Achan, an example of those of us who do not follow the orders, but do whatever their old Adam pleases, as Achan did. When I saw among the spoils a goodly Babylonish garment, and 200 shekels of silver, and a wedge of gold of 50 shekels weight, then I coveted them, and took them. And behold, they are hid in the midst of my tent, and the silver under it. For the love of money, fall For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. They that will be rich, or want to be rich, fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. Be thou, O man of God, flee these things, but thou, so not be, but thou, flee these things and follow after righteousness, after godliness, after faith, after love, patience, and meekness. Achan wanted to keep for himself what God wanted him either to use for his cause or to destroy, as the case may be. Because inside Jericho, there are things that are to be destroyed and things that are to be directed in another direction after we get consecrated to God. He didn't want either. He didn't want to destroy, and he didn't want to use them in another direction. And such an attitude results in spiritual weakness and spiritual death. Achan is an example of that. So let us stick to God and Jesus' instruction and follow them the way they are given, manifesting unbreakable faith no matter what misfortune he allows into our lives. And he does allow a lot of misfortune into our lives. As whatever they are but temporary and sent to help us kill our old Adam, not our new Adam. They are sent, well, all those different misfortunes, to help us kill our old Adam, not the new one. And one more scripture, for if you live after the flesh, you shall die eternally. If you are on trial for life, everyone sooner or later will stand on trial for life. But if you through the Spirit do mortify the deeds of the body, you shall live again eternally. Thank you for listening and watching the Walls of Jericho. May the Lord add his blessings and turn our wall. Okay, I would say, have a look at the picture. That's what our walls should become. And break our walls down so that our old fallen will, human will, does not block the work that is to take place inside. Thank you for your attention.